Yeah, I know, but you're the poster girl for Catalyst Athletics, and
Oh my gosh. I don't know if that's true, but
wow, you know, now I've been watching the videos for like since God was a lad. You know what I mean?
oh
Like
my gosh.
it's been years.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's an honor having a conversation. Thank you. Oh, did it cut out? Are we still here?
Thank you for supporting us.
Oh no, always like, you know, the you're doing great work, and I love the breaking it down for the everyday Joe to see weightlifting rather than just like, oh, it's this crazy thing that these like, gladiators do. We don't get anything involved in it. You know what I mean? It's like, no, 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 no. Everyone can do it. Let's just pick up a broomstick. Let's focus on
Yeah.
an empty bar. Like, here's a lady. Now here's a dude that's doing it. They're like 3 feet apart, in height. And you're like, oh, many, many different people can do this.
Anyone can do it. And I really believe like this sport has taught me more than school ever did and ever
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you allow it, it's such a special thing that people can be involved in. If you come to it, it's changed my life. Like, and Greg and Amy, I would not I am today if it weren't for them. They like
Mm.
took me in at like the worst time in my life and like flipped it around. So yeah, it's awesome.
Fuck, that fires me up so much. I think there's so much to be learned from the Bible and just putting in time. Well, there's so much to be learned from trying to perfect anything, right? You're on the pursuit of perfection. You'll never get there. It's the journey. It's something to chase, right? But we just do
Mhm.
it through the medium of the Bible, and I think it's so cool, and it's so cool to see, man. Like, you just see someone like coming in, putting their hands on the bar day in, day out, and you're like, this is epic.
I love it. Used to coach at a CrossFit gym, and I coached like the Olympic weightlifting classes. And like some of them, like the best times were just watching people like learn the sport. And when they got something, their whole soul would light up, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I get it! I did it!" And it was just like the coolest thing to watch because like they're not doing it for like the accolades or because they have to do it or because that's their job. They're doing it because they have like a zeal and passion for a sport and they just want to be better. And I think like it's such a pure form of just like seeing someone express themselves
Yeah.
without wanting anything else from it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's the mental barriers they've had to overcome, to throw a bar above your head. That's a scary thing.
Yeah, I've never
Right.
thought about it like that.
But
I've never thought about that.
the thing is, it's a metal object, right? And I coached a lot of people, right? Like, a lot of people, and a lot of them have never put something above their head before.
Wild. That's crazy.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You think about it, like, what do you mean? It was like, oh no, I've never played any sport. I've never done anything, never worked out. I was like, what? Like, you've
Yeah.
never put an object above your head, and now I'm telling you to get like a hard object and do it at some sort of speed. Like,
Yeah. You want
okay,
me to put that over my head? That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
And be
you
able to hold it
sure?
there.
And then
Yeah.
squat, you're like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna attempt it. He's like, you're fucking crazy, dude. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not
I
doing
think I'm
that.
gonna go home now. Bye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
No, that the mental barriers people overcome. I honestly think the first time, I don't think you'll ever replicate with a dude. It's a little different. I think you've got to do it with an empty bar, right? But you'll never replicate the first time I see a lady who's never been in the gym before, right? Throw a PVC pipe above her head.
Yeah.
Because she like literally will turn around, look you in the eye, and be like, "Holy shit, it's
Yeah.
above my head." I'm like, "Yeah, you just did it. Like, good job."
You did great. Yeah. I mean, I think I've never really thought of it in that respect. Just I like grew up being an athlete. So I mean, I think that thinking about like putting something over my head, I was a gymnast, so it was just very natural for me. But like the biggest thing I think when we're talking mentally, weightlifting taught me confidence,
Mm.
you know, and like and also it made me go on a journey too of kind of like understanding like where my self-worth came from. Like it's not, I was taught growing up that your self-worth was in what you do and what you achieve, not who you are as a person. Or like, you know, like even in school, you watch like little kids, the kids that are smart and have the right answers, they get praised. The ones that don't either get ignored or they actually get like talked down to or belittled, and not necessarily someone meaning to do that, but you watch that happen just as kids grow up. And as we grow up, there's people who are like the MVPs on the football team or the quarterback on the football team gets all the praise, and all the other players are kind of left behind just to stand behind them, you know? And like that's very much how I grew up. But it was like once I moved to like Greg and Amy, it was learning like, okay, if I don't do or make this lift, they don't not love me. They're not going to fire me. Like at the end of the day, this is just a sport, and it's something that I'm doing or should be doing because it fills me up, and it's something that I feel like I'm called to do in this time in my life. It shouldn't be because I'm striving to feel loved or striving to feel whatever, right? To be noticed or whatever it is. It's actually, it should be something that I'm doing because this is what I feel called to do, not because this is definitive of. So, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Where do you think the lack of confidence comes from the kids? Like, do you think it's parental, or do you think it's like innate? Like, where do you think it all comes from?
Just kids in general.
Yeah.
I truly believe the saying that your insecurities are taught to you. You were never born with an insecurity. I wasn't born thinking, oh, if I don't look this way, then I don't look good. Or another kid wasn't born like, oh, if I'm not smart, then I'm not worth anything. Anything, any insecurity that you have, it was taught to you at some point in your life. So it's going to be an exterior factor, or even just watching things on the internet or the TV, like, oh, these women look this way, so this must be how I'm supposed to look. And if you look this way, then you're going to be made fun of or belittled, you know? So I think it comes from social media, parent, like no matter how hard you try as a parent to be a perfect parent, you are not going to be a perfect parent. You are a person, and you're dealing with another person who will interpret things differently than maybe you intended, you know? And so that is going to affect them a different way than maybe you intended. And you may never know until way later on if they ever choose to say something, because if we think we're right, we're not going to ask and be like, so am I right? You know, you're just going to be like, well, I'm right. That's what they meant, you know? Until you learn what healthy communication is. And you're like, oh, I wonder if that was their intent. Maybe I should ask and find that out. So I really think it's you with you and your interactions with other people, and just what you choose to let into your life and into your brain, and what you watch is what I think your insecurities come from. You're not born with them.
I think you touched on something really interesting of like healthy communication, right? And I think I know this to be true for myself anyway, like that is developed once I fuck up in adult life, right? You go through all the way through school, all the way through my education anyway, right? And I just, okay, yeah, I'm doing things right, they're doing things right, they're doing things wrong, I'm doing things wrong, whatever. And you figure that thing out when you have those difficult conversations outside of school, right? But I was in my 20s. And I'm like, I'm only just learning how to communicate with people in a way, you know what I mean? It's like this, you know, if we would have learned this 18, 12, 7, whatever, and being able to actually effectively communicate, one, how we feel, two, what we think, three, what we're trying to get across, right? And be like, hey, I'm trying to like decipher this thing to say it in a way that you're going to understand. I'm not doing a good job. You know what I mean? And just trying to like work through that.
Well, and sharing your intent too. I think like I went on a journey of learning what healthy communication looks like. And by all means, I never always do it perfectly. But I think too, like having like understanding that when someone's saying something to you, don't necessarily always like listen to their words, but what is their intent behind what they're saying? Because I know this one person who just talks so like just aggressively, And it's not because they are angry or upset. It's just they're really passionate about what they're saying, but it comes off to a lot of people as like they're pissed. And it's like, and I was talking to someone else who's friends with them, and I was just kind of like, I know it can be really triggering and hard to hear what they have to say, especially if it's not what you want to hear, but you have to listen to the intent behind what they're saying.
Mhm.
And if you don't understand what they're saying and you just think that they're just pissed and telling you what to do, say, hey, this is what I hear you saying. Can you please explain to me if that's exactly what you mean, or if, is your intention because you want what's best for me, or are you angry with me because of this, you know? And it's like, you're not always going to understand someone. And if you feel hurt by them, don't make them feel guilty, but explain to them what you're hearing and being like, is this what you meant? You know? And I think that it's hard for people to hear something and not get like super defensive, like, oh, you're saying I'm a bad person because you heard that. It's like, hey, I'm not speaking to your character. Just because what I heard isn't what you meant, that doesn't change your intention. Like, just share your intent of your heart, regardless of how I receive that. You had an intent in the first place, and that does not change depending on how someone else receives it.
Wow. I would play devil's advocate, right? In the sense of, so I always like to spin everything to coaching, right? Because that's just, coaching is kind of weird because I've learned so much about life, myself, other people from coaching them, right?
Yes.
You'll know
Yes.
as yourself as a coach, like that's, if we have 12 people in the class, right? Or 12 people in front of us, we can learn from 12 different people.
Yes.
They're more than likely only going to learn from us, right? Yeah, they can learn from each other and you encourage it, right? But most of the time they kind of disregard that. And I'm going to make it in simple terms. So coaching wise, it's like, okay, great. Like I come in, I'm talking, especially because I left home, right? And I moved areas and I sounded a bit different. And okay,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, what's this? Is this French? Is this like German? What is he talking about? I was like, am I blonde? Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, I've got this intent. I say it in this way, right? And I know what I mean. However, if this person comes in, or if this type of person comes in, right, and they don't know me, and they don't know that I'm a little bit sarcastic, I have a deep voice, you know, I sound a bit different, they might be a little bit intimidated to start off with. I'm like, okay, cool. Then I have to change and adapt the way I present myself in communication, right? So then they get it in a way where it's friendly and it diffuses that environment. And it's kind of paying attention to the vibe that people give off when you start talking.
Absolutely. And I think too, along with that, like when I was coaching, like I was this little tiny little Asian girl coming in who was like 21, and all of these guys are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, been doing CrossFit, lived a life that I've never lived. And it's like, and it's like I had to earn their respect. And I recognize that, like, respect is earned, trust is earned, it's not given. And I'm like, okay, well, honestly, we just let them hear what they have to say, communicate with them, communicate my intention, and like just show them that I care. Like I remember one thing the gym owner said to me at that time, a while later after I was coaching, he was like, how are you so close with all of the members? And I was like, because I care. I intentionally go and make relationships with all of them. I know about their outside lives because I ask and I show that I care and I intently listen. You are going to get what you put in, period. You know, and people pick up on the fact that you care. If, you know, like when you walk up to someone, you're like, hey, how are you? In America, you say, good, how are you? And the conversation's done, right? In different countries, if you say, hey, how are you? People will actually sit down with you and tell you the ins and the outs and the good and the bad of their day, you know? And like, that's what builds those relationships. And it's like, when I ask that, if someone's like, oh, I'm okay, I'm like, oh, so I hear you're saying you're only okay. Like, what's going on? Do you want to talk about it? It's okay if you don't, but I would love to hear if you do, you know? And like actually getting to know those people, because that's going to build trust. And you get cool friends. Like you meet and learn such cool things about people, and you learn what you do and you don't want to along the way through those experiences, you know? So coaching is so much more, in my opinion, so much more than just what happens in the gym. It is what happens in the gym, but these people are real people going through real lives, which actually affect how they show up in the gym, right? So if they trust you with their outside lives as well, and they're like, hey, I'm actually going through a breakup right now, or I'm going through this, or my mom has cancer, you're like, okay, you know what? It helps you talk them off the ledge, like, hey, you're going through a lot. I know that we all think that we can get through anything, and I do think you're tough, but outside life does affect how you're going to show up, and that's okay, right? I'm still here for you. I still think you're doing great. It's okay to scale back. This one workout is not who you are as an athlete. It's one workout, right? We're here to have fun. Let's get through it together.
100%. Like, people fall in the trap of thinking they're in the business of fitness, and they're not. They're in the business of people. You know,
Yes.
like the individual is going to change and adapt over time, but also it could be day to day, it could be hour on the hour, it could flip. You're going to change, right? It's such an organic thing that just kind of like evolves over time, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, all you got to do is invest a little bit of time. Hey, you're going to go get a coffee after class anyway, right? This
Yeah.
person probably going to go home, make breakfast before they go to work, right? They got an hour, maybe. Like, do you want to go get a coffee and shoot the shit, right? You learn so much about people.
Yeah.
Just invest in a little bit of time.
Yes. And like, honestly, like I remember one time in high school, someone asked me like, well, what do you think the meaning of life is? And I was like, screw you. I don't know. Like, what? And now, I mean, I was not that like into life or anything. I don't even know. But now, like, I truly believe the meaning of life and the reason we get to live this life is like to love on each other and build deep relationships. Like, that's what life is about. Materialistic things, I don't care. Take my money, take my car, I don't care. What does matter is like if you are happy on the inside and fulfilled, everything else is going to come. If you try to build it from the outside in, you will never be successful. You know, it has to be inward going out, and you will flourish. I truly believe that. If you work on your heart and what you need and whatever, you will flourish, and people will see that. And people are drawn to people that are happy, and people are drawn to people that care, you know? And I'm not
100%.
saying don't do it be authentic about it, but it starts in here. It doesn't start out there.
Yeah, I think the world just needs more people with a little bit of passion within their eyes, right? Just
Yeah.
do something that you love doing, right? And that gives to the world. That's starting from the in out rather than being this hollow creature, right? Where I'm like, I need this, now I need this, and now I need this. It's like those things, the worth of those things is going to end up diminishing, and it's going to
Right.
be nothing.
And I tell the kids that I coach all the time, I'm like, I would much rather you guys do what you are passionate about than go make millions of dollars and be miserable. You know, like what happens on the inside, like you have to follow your dreams. Everyone has a calling. We all are gifted. All have a calling. Follow that calling, follow that path. You're gonna be okay. I think it's scary because it's not always quote unquote comfortable, but you have to be uncomfortable to grow and grow into the person that you were made to be. But it's so worth it if you're willing to do that, you know, and you go after that. I truly believe that.
Yes. So what's your purpose?
Oh, I love that question. Oh my gosh. Okay. I feel like my purpose and my calling is like just being with other people. And by that, I mean, and connecting with other people. And by that, I mean, when I meet people, like, I think this is a gift that God gave me. When I meet people, people open up and like the floodgates just open. They share their whole life with me. Like, and then afterwards they're like, oh my gosh, I just word vomited. I can't believe I just told you that. I just met you. What the heck? And I'm like, it's okay. Like that, it's fine. Like that is honestly my favorite thing to do is sit down with somebody and just hear what makes them tick. Hear about their lives and just who they are as people. So to answer your question, I believe my calling like is I think that I want to be a family and children's counselor or therapist one day. Right now I'm an athlete, but athlete and coach. And I have learned so much and gotten to know so many people through that and had so many people like share their lives with me. But I think it's gonna be more than that one day. And I don't know what that looks like. And all I know is right now I'm exactly where I need to be doing what I love and what I feel called to do. And I get to do that with people every single day already. Like the kids tell me everything about their lives. And like it's the most precious thing in the world to have these kids trust you enough to be like, hey, my parents were fighting last night and it made me feel this way. Or hey, I just went through a breakup and I feel this way. What do I do? And like, but like having these precious kids come to you and like trust you with that is like, I can't even explain how much I love these kids. It's crazy. Like I would do anything for them. They have taught me more than I think they will ever know. Like they are the biggest blessing to my life. It's just so cool. I think they're awesome. But anyways.
No, I love it that you coach kids. Like that's one of my passions, right? And I was coaching a lot of kids back home before I moved over here, and one of them, I think I started working with him when he was about 13, right? And he was a little 13-year-old kid, right? And the next thing you know, I see something pop up on Facebook, and I was like, oh, he's just turned 17.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you were a kid when I met you, and now you look like a man.
Oh my gosh, but it's so amazing to see what they can do. I have so much faith in these children. This one girl I coach, she's about to graduate 8th grade. I'm like gonna like cry, like ball cry. I'm like, she's growing up so fast. I met her when she was 11 and she's gonna be 15 this year. And I'm like, where did the time go? You're growing up so quickly. It's crazy, but it's so cool to watch these kids grow up into these amazing little human beings.
I think it's such an honor to teach them life through sport.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we do. That's what I used to tell people. Like I used to run the whole youth development, right? And it was like, no, I don't teach them fitness. I don't teach them how to squat or move a barbell. Like that's just a medium, right? That's a byproduct. Yeah, we get to have fun, high five each other, whatever, play a bit of basketball, throw a bar. Okay, great. But I teach them life,
Yes. I used to do Friday life lessons when I worked at the gym.
Hey.
So on Fridays after class, because I was like, these kids, some of the kids all knew each other, but I'm like, what's going on in your guys' life? But I can't sit down with every one of them and be like, hey, what's going on? So it's like on Fridays after class, everyone got a whiteboard and they would write down a lesson that they learned. It could be like something just a lesson. It could be anything. Really, they could write anything they wanted and we'd go around and they would all share like what their life lesson was for that week. And it was just super cool to hear the kids like explain it. And I'm like, well, it's just cool. You get like, they learn a little bit more and they learn a little bit more about each other and it actually brought them closer too. So it's super cool. But yes, we learn sport is what brings people together, but it's what you do within that. I think that really creates those relationships and bonds,
Yes. I think there's a really unique teaching that you can occur in sport, like regardless of what sport it is, like whether it's a team sport, an individual sport, whether it's a recreational, whether you're going for performance, right? I think you can teach a lot more things than just, hey, this is how you throw a ball. We're going to play a sport called baseball, right? And you're like, okay, great. Like I'm going to get really niche and honed in on this one sport, right? I think if we, like, I'm a big advocate of more spotting skill. I think we should do more PE, right? Because I think there should be GPP and there should be performance based, right? And I think we should like teach, I don't know, maths through sport, like just get kids moving around. Like I remember back in school when if we had double PE in the morning, it was like, okay, it's 8 a.m., 9 a.m., whenever we started. Okay, first 2 lessons, we're out, we're messing around, we're doing some sort of PE, great. The rest of the day, we did so much better work.
Yeah.
Like so much better.
I mean, there's been studies shown about that, you know?
Oh, well, there you
Like,
go.
kids need to move around. Kids need to do things. They weren't meant to just sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day. They're going to go freaking crazy. And honestly, they're probably not paying attention. I was making glue balls under the desk in school, you know, like, and like shaving or erasing an eraser with an eraser. Like, I was so bored, you know, but once I got some activity and then got back into the classroom, I was like, okay, I can kind of focus more, you know?
The thing is, I'm the same now. I can't sit for 8 hours. That's impossible. I will
Yeah, I
not
know.
do it. I will put my head through the screen or punch someone who walks through the door. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
gonna happen. And how are we expecting to tell a kid to do that? You know?
Well, I think we hold, honestly, I think society has come up with these expectations for children that are almost like unrealistic. Like, I was talking to this girl the other day. She's 14, insanely smart. She's in the 90th percentile, but she's so smart. And I like said a cuss word and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have cussed in front of you. And she's like, it's okay. You grown-ups try and shield us from cussing when there's way bigger things that we're going through, like suicide, bullying, like learning about sex, all of these right there. So true. Like, we're trying to shield these kids from what a cuss, and they're dealing with bullying, depression, suicidal thoughts, body image issues, eating disorders, all of these things. And it's like, well, what the frick are we doing? Like, I think it's all backwards. Like, when I really take a look at it, it's like, and they never learn communication skills. They don't learn how to do taxes. They don't learn anything. They learn like freaking I mean, ABCs are useful actually, but like, you know what? But like, they learn stuff that just isn't necessarily useful, and they forget it all. And then they get into college or whatever, and they freaking go berserk, and they're like partying every day, doing all this crap. Like, it's like not knowing how to communicate, in abusive relationships, doing all these things, and they don't know how to get out of them because they were never taught. And they think that that's okay. They think that their boyfriend yelling at them every day is okay and they're wrong, when it's like, no, that's not love. That's not what it should be. I 1000% believe love is real. You can have a wonderful, healthy, communicative, loving relationship, absolutely possible. But you guys both have to be willing to learn and know how to do that. But so many people were never taught, and never around people who know how or want to learn, because their way or the highway, or if someone says they're wrong, then they suck as a person, not just, hey, we can learn together.
So I wrote something the other day in the sense of like a lot of young men get told they don't have any love, right? They're just super aggressive and violent or whatever. It's like, I think they got a lot of love to give. They're just never taught how to.
Yes. Well, I think too, along with that, yes, men have so much love on it. There's actually a study done. Babies who are boys are actually way more needy than girls. Girls are actually way more independent than a baby boy, because they need more nurturing. Like, they truly just need to be more nurtured. Baby girls are usually a little bit more independent. But I think too, in our society, at least in America, or like where I am, they, if a guy shows an emotion, they're made fun of. They're called weak. You're not a man. You are this, you are that. So they're taught at a young age, I am not allowed to feel these emotions, or I'm not a man. Where it's like, in my opinion, if you are able to communicate your feelings, you are more than a man than someone who's just super pissed and angry. Like, anger is a secondary emotion. There's something else going on there. You feeling hurt, disappointed, something else is happening, but you're just angry. You're just being a dickhole. Like, you know what I mean? Men have so much love. They are such deep souls, just like women. It's just acceptable for us to be that way. and not quite as acceptable. Tables are turning a little bit, but not as acceptable for a man to be that way.
Mhm.
You know,
All the aggression, in my opinion, comes from vulnerability.
like scared of being vulnerable.
Sometimes, or sometimes they feel vulnerable in a situation, right? So it's like, okay, if I'm really scared right now and I think something might go down or I feel vulnerable or whatever, if I rip this person's head off,
It won't happen.
It can't hurt me.
Yes. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. It's like they're like, well, I might as well protect myself and hurt this person so I don't get hurt. It's kind of like the saying, like, it's easier to leave than get left.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's strange because you end up jumping at ghosts. Like you end up preempting something that quite potentially could never have happened, right?
Wow.
And you cause the conflict yourself rather than figuring it out as soon as it arrives, right? Like, this could potentially go down. Okay, great. I'm going to punch him in the face. You're like,
and
wait.
then it turns out the way you think it's going to. So it proves to you, you're like, yeah, I'm right. When
I'm right. Exactly.
Not necessarily true if you knew how to communicate, and not everyone knows how to communicate. Even if you were a great communicator and you tried to communicate to me and I did not know how to communicate, then it's still not going to go awesome, probably, but it's going to go better because one person knows how, right?
Yeah.
So, but I never thought about that, like, it's easier to just like fight than potentially. Being is so hard. It's easy to be transparent, and for people it's even hard to be transparent, but it's easier to be transparent than to be vulnerable.
Yes.
In my opinion, it's easier to tell someone what's happening but not how it makes you feel.
Yes. The thing is, I think we need to be able to do both, right? I think we need to be able to kind of go, I came up with a concept, right? Of the arena and the cave, right? The arena being irrationality, aggression, physical, right? And the cave being emotional, thoughtful, thinking, like kind of sitting down. And I think we need something in our lives to put us in both situations, right? Because I think when we lose control, that's when things get really dangerous in a bad sense, right? So it's like, oh, I've lost control. I don't know how to deal with this. Usually for a dude, it's I'm going to start a physical conflict, right? For a lady, purely from experience, that's usually I'm going to break down and I'm going to experience a shitload of anxiety or something like that, right?
Yes.
And you're like,
I'm going to just cry at you.
Or you're going to cry. Exactly.
Yes.
And purely from experience, okay, this is that I'm not an academic. I don't have any figures or anything. Purely from experience, I've noticed the dudes spend way too much time in that arena, way too much time, right? They're having a coffee with their significant other on a fucking Saturday morning and they're in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're like, okay, let's ready to scrap. And you're like, what are you doing? It's 7 o'clock in the morning. You're sharing a coffee. Yeah. Just enjoy the sunrise. Come on, let's calm down. And ladies spend too much time on the other side.
Yes.
So it's doing something every day or every week, however you like to structure your time, which kind of puts you in both, right? And I find it really interesting because I'm kind of like a history geek, right? Part-time. But because my memories
part-time podcaster, part-time history geek. Part-time coach.
yeah. Like and the Romans had time, right? The Roman warriors had time to philosophize. They were literally given tasks of, hey, you're gonna go sit on this rock and think about things. Wow. It's like, but they're the first people to pay their military, right? Yeah. And I'm like, well, if they're thinking about things, they also came up with a lot of wisdom. Yeah, they came up with a lot of bullshit. Like, well, we do that now, right? And we have quote unquote modern science. I think we need to learn something here and be like, okay, we need to be able to sit in this place and be like, what is going on? Right. And then we also need to be like, well, suck it up, princess. You're going to have to throw a punch sometimes.
Okay. Yes. So what you're saying, I think, is something that I learned too in this course that I called Living Fully Alive. But they were talking about kind of like it's okay to be in your cave. So it's okay to feel your emotions, and your emotions have to be met with emotion, right? So if I'm feeling super upset and you're just trying to bring a ton of logic in or bring me back into the arena per se, it ain't gonna go well. I'm gonna shut down. It's not gonna go well. So if I'm in the cave, you have to meet me in the cave and be like, hey, I know you're feeling this way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then once I feel validated, then we walk together into the arena and you can bring logic in, and I'm going to receive that and be able to be with you in that and walk with you to the arena. You know what I mean? So it's okay to have those emotions, but you can't just sit in it, you know? You can't just be like what you're kind of saying, if I heard you correctly, or I totally have no idea what you just said and misinterpreted everything.
No. There should be a little button somewhere that you can click that gets the subtitles on.
Oh my gosh.
I'm fucking with you.
Like, yeah, I know. I literally looked at it and I was like, okay, he's just kidding. But I do, yes, there is a time and a place for both, I think. And we need to be able to balance the both. And I think that actually, if we bring it back to weightlifting teaches you both.
100%.
You have to fight like a mother forker to weightlift. That being said, at least in my experience, it's the only thing that makes me so emotional. Like, it brings out both sides, but it's like, okay, I can be emotional, but I also have to fight right now, you know? And it's like, we both, men spend a lot of time in the arena and women in the cave, but we can do both. Men can be vulnerable and women can fight like hell, you know? And it's also recognizing that we're capable of both of those things. I think a lot of times we as human beings, men or women, are so afraid of doing something wrong and being like not being enough, not being good enough. Yeah. Or like, if I share, like, as a man, or maybe I should speak as a woman. Wait, sorry. Okay, like, from my experience with men, they don't want to share their feelings because then they're like, well, then I'm weak, and you're not going to want to be with someone who's weak, right? Or like a woman, I have a lot of emotions, and like, I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to share all of them because you're going to think I'm a freaking psycho. You know, but there is a balance, but you guys have to be able to meet each other in both places and accept that, bottom line, regardless of what society says, we are human beings with deep souls. We are both allowed to fight and be angry, and we're both allowed to need nurturing and feel scared and be hurt and disappointed. Like, we are human beings. We will all feel along that spectrum. So if we recognize that, then a man who's upset or hurt and not showing it in anger, but in sadness, that's okay. A woman who's hurt, but showing that through anger or whatever, that's okay too. That being said, anger is a secondary emotion. So really, it's just like, I'm going to punch you with my fist, or I'm going to yell at you, because that makes me feel big when I'm feeling vulnerable, and that makes me feel in control, versus like, hey, I'm just feeling really sad right now. You know, like, what you said really hurt me. And like, actually, when we say that to somebody, they're actually going to have a lot more empathy and want to meet you where you are and be like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. That was never my intention, you know? But if I'm angry, they're going to get angry because I'm coming at them. Why wouldn't they come at me, you know?
I think the hardest thing for a dude to do is be vulnerable in front of other men.
Other men? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Y'all are all having like dick measuring competitions all the time.
Well, you know, it's fun, especially when it's like in the mud bath, you know, everyone's like rolling around. I'm fucking with you. Right.
Oh my gosh.
That's a different story. No, like, I think, so opening up to a lady, right? Rather than like, oh, I can't be emotion. I can't be seen to have emotion, etc., etc. I think most of the time is like, if I let you know how I feel, you can hurt me at any time.
Yes.
right? Like you could end up twisting that or whatever. Again, jumping at ghosts, right? But
Yeah.
ultimately, on the whole, right? So say, for example, we're in a room, right? And I open up, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, I'm 5'10", right? I'm a little bit heavier than you. If shit really goes down, and this is just because the male mind is fucking daft. It's so daft,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
No, honestly, like we are the dumb part of the species. We go from like end to end and there's nothing in the middle, right? It's like a
I
monkey
love
with
it. Yeah.
scissors clapping. It's like, did we ever evolve? No, we didn't.
No, still cavemen.
Like, like hit me on the head with a rock type
I
nonsense.
love it. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, if things really go down and you grab a knife and come at me, I'm gonna be okay,
Yeah.
right? But ultimately, if you're a dude and I'm having a conversation with a dude, it's like, well, if you grab a knife and come at me, I was like, it could be 50-50. It could be
Yeah.
75-25, like it goes so erratic. And a lot of the time I've found for dudes, it's calming that down and been like, hey, it's okay. And I think this is why every dude needs to do something physical. Every lady needs to do something physical. I agree. Like everybody on the planet needs to do something,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like, if you understand your capability physically, you really use it. You look at the fighters, right? People that do MMA, boxing, they go out, they get a little bit rowdy, get a little bit drunk, right? They're never getting into fights
Right.
because they understand, hey, if things really go down, I'm going to protect me and my friends, right? Everybody around me is going to be okay because I understand my capability. And you never use it.
I mean, I think ultimately too, it just comes down to trust. Like you're gonna be hurt. People are gonna, and I told my boyfriend this, I was like, we're gonna let each other down. We're gonna hurt each other. And that's okay. That's how we learn and that's how we grow, right? And it's the same thing with any person in any relationship, friendship, parent kid relationship. Like we're all humans, we're going to let each other down, but at the end of the day, kind of like you were saying, like if we're sitting in a room and you were vulnerable with me, you're going to win in a fight, right? But I think for men too, just like women, is like it's not necessarily the physical fight that you're scared of. You guys are scared of and we are scared of. You guys can hurt our hearts, like you guys can stab us in the heart, and it's easy to fight. Fighting is physical. It's easy and it's done. If you stab me in the heart or you stab me in the back, I am going to be hurt and I have not necessarily learned how to grieve with that. And if that happens, will I ever be okay again? Is like, you know what I mean? Like that's something too, is like ultimately I think it's more not scared of the physical fight. You're scared of the hurt of your heart,
Yeah.
of your soul,
Mm.
because that's both for women and men in any relationship, whether it be romantic or platonic. At the end of the day, we want to feel loved. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to be, it's hard to get through that. We were never taught how to get through that. And it hurts. And we don't know if we let ourselves feel that pain, is it that forever? You don't
Mm.
know until you're in it. And ultimately, it's not going to be there forever. Your heart will heal, but it's going to take time. It's going to take like just living your life, and you can't, it's going to come in waves, but you will heal, it's a long time.
Mm.
And I think that's what it's really about. It's not the physical. I think it's about protecting your heart, and you think if you can protect yourself physically, then you can protect your heart, but that's not always the case either.
Oh no, that's
It's just
the
easier
monkey
to do
brain.
that. Yeah, it's just easier to do that than potentially be rejected or
Mm-hmm.
not feel loved or not feel enough, or you're not enough of a man, or you're not worthy, or I'm not pretty enough, or whatever it is. Like those are like more on the shallow side of things, but
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like not feeling accepted and not being enough, or me loving you and you not loving me. That's going to hurt way more than any kick in the dick or punch in the face, you know, and harder to heal.
I don't know, getting kicked in the dick is pretty painful.
worse than someone not loving you
No,
back.
fuck
Yeah.
me. Hell no. No, no,
Yeah,
no.
you
Like
know?
the physical pain, it
When,
subsides. You know, it
yeah.
heals, it subsides, it leaves you a scar, great, whatever.
Right.
You know, like inside is where it gets you. It's like an itch you can't scratch.
Yeah, and it's something that we don't know if it's ever going to go away, but it does. You know, and it will come back in waves, and you'll
Hmm.
get triggered in one way or another, but it will go away. It will dissipate, and I truly believe that everyone is worthy of love, and everyone will find it if that's what they want to do, you know,
Mm.
but you have to believe that you are worthy of that, you know, and someone will love you. Someone will be enough. You will be enough. You are enough. And you don't need to change that to meet someone. Someone will see you and be like, wow, you are an amazing man or woman. You are exactly what I've been looking for. And you know what? Choosing to love you is a gift. I get to wake up and I get to choose you. And no matter what, I don't expect you to be perfect, but I'm going to love you through your imperfections and everything else in between. The things that I think are amazing and the things that I think that aren't, right? You're a human being and I'm going to choose to love every part of you. So I think it's that, you know,
Mm.
that's what I
That
ultimately think.
that's heavy, but that's warmed me up. You know,
Thank
like I think more people need to one think this, and two hear it. Right?
you.
I definitely think more young people need to hear it because it gives them a little bit of confidence of like, hey, right now you might be going through X, Y, or Z, but that's okay because ultimately it will get better, right? Ultimately, we all grow together, but also individually at the same time. We're all alone in this together is a line that fucks me up, right? Because it's like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, we are just kind of everybody's on their individual path growing, but
Yeah.
everyone's doing that together,
That's the
right?
one thing we all have in common.
Mm,
You know, it's the one thing we're all on this earth trying to do life, doing our best, or maybe not even doing our best, but we're all trying to understand life and get through life, which I don't think it's necessarily something you should get through. I think it's every day I'm like, thank you so much for God for waking me up this morning. You know, like I think every day is such a gift, but that is the one thing that we all have in common is like, look, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get through life
mm.
and feel accepted and have a place, like feel like we belong somewhere. So if you can make someone feel that way or just hear what someone has to say, like you're making people's day whether you know it or not. And someone that you don't even know is looking up to you or someone that you've never even noticed notices you.
Mm-hmm.
Just as you do for other people, you people that happens for you too. They just may never say it. And one thing, so Greg wrote this book called Tough. And one thing that stuck in my head so much was there are so many people in your life that are going to go through what you went through or a very similar situation, but never feel the courage to share it because they never felt like they overcame it, you know? And it's like, I do a pretty good job, and I don't think this is normal, but I'm okay sharing what's going on in the midst of it, you know, because I know I'm going to get through it. Whereas a lot of people, they're not going to share it until they're through it because then they have a story to tell. Then they can say, I was strong enough and tough enough to get through this, you know? And it's like, and some people don't even feel that way. It's they got, they were tough or strong enough. When really, if they get an opportunity to hear their story and speak truth and life and love into them, they would know that they made it through, that
Mm.
they were capable and they are so much stronger than they ever believed they were.
I fucking love this, man. Like, just hearing other people's perspectives on things, you know, realizing I'm not the only crazy motherfucker out there is
We're all
always
crazy.
nice. We're all
We're
nuts, man.
all,
We're
yeah,
all nuts. It's crazy, but it's also it's so beautiful. It's what makes life interesting. You
yeah.
know, you're like, wow, what do you think? What do you? How do you feel? What's your life experience and perspective like? And That's what young people need, man. That's what old
Yeah,
people need. That's what young people need. Just old people have a little bit more time while they play crib, right?
yeah.
Sipping like a
But
tea.
I will say this, I think age is just a number. You have
Oh
to
yeah.
want to go on that journey. There's so many people that are so much older than me that like haven't healed, and they're still battling the demons in the closet because they never were taught how to do that, and they're like 60 going through all of it now and all the trauma, and it's like that's I can't imagine living 60 years repressed in your hurt and your trauma and never feeling like you have a way out. But I will say this. I will leave you with this, and it's one of the best things someone ever said to me, and I share it with anyone I can because I think it's one of the best life lessons that I've ever heard, okay? And it's this: the view from the mountaintop. We all love the view from the mountaintop. It's amazing. But it's actually in the valley where the water runs and the babies are born and new life comes, right? So even though we love the mountaintop, you actually grow and become a new being in the hardest times, in the valley. That's where you're going to grow.
Mm.
That's where the water runs. The babies are born, the trees grow, the wildflowers blossom, and that's where you're going to blossom. And then you're going to get through it and you're going to be on the mountaintop. And that view is beautiful. But there is so much life and growth and beauty in the midst of hardship in the valley.
Mm.
And that you are going to go through a valley. We all will, but you are going to be okay. And that is where you are going to grow.
Mm. That's so true. That's so true. And like people like to glorify the top, right?
Yeah.
The destination, the outcome or whatever it is, the result. And it's like, no, it's everything that's going to get you there, man. Whether you don't even achieve that thing you set out to, but you learn so much along the way. Like, we've lost this. One of the reasons why it's called the nomadic podcast, we've lost this nomadic sense where it's like, I'm just kind of committed to the journey, right? Where I'm just going to walk out of my door one time, lace up my shoes and just walk.
Going. Yes.
And I don't know where I'm going to go to. I don't know what's going to happen, but like ultimately I'm going to have a wicked story at the end of it because you're going to learn so many different things about yourself and everything else around you, right? I think we've lost it just because it's, result driven or whatever. Like we could pull out 1,000,001 reasons.
We're looking for accolades, but life isn't about accolades.
Hell no, we can't take those accolades with us, man.
It's
They're
so
not
much
going
more.
anywhere.
It's not about the car you drive or the house you live in or the age that you get married or the age you accomplish this thing. It's nothing about that, in my opinion. And it's okay if people hold a different opinion.
Yeah, of course.
I think that it's about who you become and what you are and the relationships you have. Life is so beautiful and we don't know when it's going to be taken away. So go to bed every night, say thank you, tell the people you love that you love them, and know that you're enough and that you are going to grow. And if you're hurting, you're not going to hurt forever. I promise you are not going to hurt forever. You're going to be okay.
So I got 3 questions.
Okay, I love it. Okay, what you got?
What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Greatest piece of life advice that I ever received was, honestly, this sounds super cliche, but keep going and tell the people you love that you love them. Like, you can never say I love you enough or too much. You just can't. You can never tell someone you appreciate them too much, Like, everyone wants to hear that, but people never say it enough. So
I completely agree.
yes.
And I got a thing. So I pay attention to the friends. So I tell my mates I love them all the time, right? And pay attention to which ones say it back.
Yeah, you will always. I will say this: you will always remember who says "I love you" to you.
Yeah.
Like, we always remember the negative things, but one positive thing that I think is to remember, because we all want to feel loved.
Yes, totally.
Yes.
What's the worst piece of life advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. These are the two things. I have two. One is money's what matters. What you live in is what matters. Like any of that stuff. Anything that's materialistic. I am the most non-materialistic person I think you'll ever meet.
Mhm.
So none of that matters to me. I don't like giving gifts and I don't like receiving gifts. So I don't like it.
Mhm.
It makes me uncomfortable. That's the first one. The second one, the second one is that, and this is something I learned in church, and maybe it's just I misconstrued it, but it was like that you are only here to serve others. And I agree, we need to love and serve others, but at the same time, like pay attention to what's going on inside too. You know, like if you're hurting inside, like it or not, people pick up on your energy, you know? So what goes in here and like the relationship between you and God and you and yourself, that matters just as much as anything else. So that would be the second one. But I do think you should pour into other people, but yeah.
3 words you tell your younger self.
3 words I would tell my younger self.
Yeah.
I love you. You are worthy. And keep going.
Mm. I need to sit down after this one. I need to meditate a little bit.
It was so awesome. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm so grateful for your time, mate. Like, I'm grateful for you to throw a Bible above your head so I can watch it and be like, listen, guys, this is what we need to be doing. You know, just copy Lily. Copy this lady. It's like, who's that? It's like a legend.
Thank you so much.
And no, I'm super grateful for your honesty, your time, and everything that you do, mate. And whenever, I'm going to put it out there, whenever I get over and to the States, I'll drop on by. We can throw a Bible overhead, share a coffee,
come on over.
shoot some shit.
Yeah, it's been real having you. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, and have a great day, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. You too.
All right, man. Bye, everybody.